Please adhere to YouTube's selected guidelines before viewing the content of this video. I do not encourage or condone any products, actions, or behaviors shown in this video. All videos are produced in a safe, professional, and controlled environment. Please do not attempt to replicate any actions performed during the video. All actions are performed by professionals.
Alright, so today I'm going to be smoking an American Double Happiness cigarette for the first time. In specific, what I've got with me today is a pack of the Double Happiness hard pack cigarettes from the United States, which are a full flavored cigarette that are actually not produced in America, instead being made for the American market in China by the Shanghai Tobacco Group, a subsidiary of China Tobacco, which is the Chinese tobacco monopoly that is also known as CNTC. After production, these are then imported into the United States by the Consi Group, who is the registered seller of Double Happiness and Changhua cigarettes in America. That means that these are a legal import of, well, a Chinese-made cigarette into the United States, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Now, Double Happiness and Changhua cigarettes are not registered for sale everywhere in the United States, I do want to acknowledge. Only in a handful of states, sadly. And sadly, my state, where I live, is not on the list of states where Double Happiness cigarettes are sold. And so as such, I am very thankful to Kirk for having been kind enough to contribute this pack of cigarettes to the channel for me to smoke and make a full review on. Thank you so much once again to Kirk for the contribution. I am very excited to try a pack of American Double Happiness cigarettes for the first time, to say the least. Once again, thank you so much to Kirk. I really do appreciate it. But why am I so excited to try an American pack of Double Happiness cigarettes? Well, frankly put, it's because I've had a good experience with Double Happiness cigarettes in the past, and I'm curious to find out just how an American Double Happiness cigarette will actually be in comparison to the one I've had previously. I have previously tried a Chinese market pack of Double Happiness cigarettes before, and I found them to be really good. They smoked well, the packaging was great, and they were just really solid cigarettes overall. But how will an American pack of Double Happiness cigarettes be in comparison? And while yes, this pack is still made in China, but it's actually made by a different subsidiary of China Tobacco than the pack that I tried a pack of Double Happiness cigarettes from previously. So I'm thinking overall, these are going to be different without a doubt. But are they going to be better or worse? I don't know, but I'm very excited to let y'all know and to find out for myself as well. I do suppose, without further ado, now that I've covered everything I want to say for my intro, I should probably go ahead and cover what Double Happiness actually is as a brand. So, what is Double Happiness? Well, Double Happiness is a Chinese cigarette brand that was first introduced in 1906 in Hong Kong by the Nanyang Brothers Tobacco Company, based in Hong Kong as well, and quickly became a hit in the first couple decades after its introduction, making quite the lasting impact. In the 1950s, the parts of the Nanyang Brothers Tobacco Company that were located in mainland China became nationalized, and so today the brand is owned there by China's tobacco monopoly, China Tobacco, also known as CNTC. Flipping the page to the next one. However, outside of China, the brand is owned and produced by a variety of different manufacturers, so it can get quite confusing to say the least. Today, Double Happiness cigarettes are undoubtedly quite popular and iconic, especially within China and Hong Kong, but also within other regions around the world, where they are sold sometimes illegally by third parties to skirt the insane taxes that some countries require. Looking at you, Australia. Yep, looking right at you, Australia. That's the country I'm talking about, I want to acknowledge. I'm not exactly sure when Double Happiness cigarettes as a brand, and when Double Happiness... Wait, hold up. Felt like I had a bug on my neck. Started feeling like a bug was crawling on my neck for some reason. Not exactly sure why. It is a bit warm out here today, so the bugs are out. Let me try that again. I'm not exactly sure when Double Happiness as a brand was first introduced into the American market, but I can say that I haven't been able to find any official records stating a date. But I can also say with confidence that the brand was more than likely first brought here in or prior to the mid-2000s and has remained ever since, albeit only being sold in a handful of states, not including my own, as previously said. That's what Double Happiness is as a brand, more so than not. I do suppose, without further ado, I should probably go ahead and now quickly go over the packaging of, well, the American Double Happiness cigarettes that I have with me today. After that, I think I should probably go ahead and get the cellophane all off, go ahead and get the pack of cigarettes all opened up, take a look at the inside of the pack, then go ahead and get the foil all ripped out, take a look at the cigarettes themselves, see what they look like, what they feel like, what the quality is like, what they smell like, everything like that. And then, once I'm done taking a look at the cigarettes for the first time, I'm gonna go ahead and get an American Double Happiness cigarette all lit up for the first time. And I'm gonna let y'all know just how these are, what they're like, and what I think of them. And once I'm done smoking, I'm gonna go and give you guys my final thoughts on this pack. I'm gonna let y'all know whether I think this is a better pack of cigarettes than the pack of Double Happiness I've had in the past. And I'm also gonna give this pack a rating as well. As said, first off though, we've got to go over the packaging, which is a much more simple look than not at a glance, but actually has a decent amount of complexity to it if you start to pay attention and look at it in detail. Overall, I think this pack definitely looks a bit more basic than not at a glance, but it overall, especially after you start looking at it just a little bit in depth, looks really, really, really nice. It's nothing insanely complex by any means, but it certainly has more to it than initially meets the eye. Overall, from a distance, it is very obvious exactly what pack of cigarettes this is, if you know what you're looking for at least. Of course, the front of the pack does not have any English on it except for the producer name down here. So if you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what you're looking at. But if you know what you're looking at, if you know what you're looking for, these are very easy to spot on the shelf. Overall, I think the aesthetics are really nice, and I also think the functionality is quite nice as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the details of the pack though. We can see there is a bright red background up top, a bright red background on the bottom as well, with a sort of, I'd have to say, gray-white background in the middle with some text there and whatnot. Let's go ahead and start with the very top up here, where we can see a bunch of lanterns. Those are made up of gold, yellow, and orange. The orange is kind of towards the edge, trying to give the flat design a more three-dimensional look, which I do think works more so than not. So yes, there are highlights trying to make the lanterns themselves look a little bit more three-dimensional, I will acknowledge. And while there's no sort of drop shadow to the lanterns, I do still think that they look quite good. There's sort of a gold dot up there, then a little bit of a gold line right there, and then the border of the center of the lantern is made up of gold as well, and there's gold dots up at the top and bottom, and then there's another gold line, another gold dot, and then kind of a string hanging down like that. Very much a classic Chinese lantern design, if you ask me. But there is indeed also some text on the lanterns themselves. Of course, it's all in Chinese, and that text is all in red as well, the same red that we see for the background, and that text just spells out Double Happiness cigarettes. In Chinese, of course. I had to translate that to realize what it actually said, because I honestly didn't know, because I don't read or speak Chinese. I will acknowledge I don't read or speak Chinese, so I did have to use Google Translate for this. But yes, it does indeed just spell out Double Happiness cigarettes, which is, in my opinion, a really, really, really cool way of having the brand logo on the pack. It's spelled out in like 5 different lanterns. Like, that's cool, that's unique. I think that's really neat. I like it. I'm not gonna lie, that's some pretty cool stuff. We can see a copyright symbol up here made up of a gold as well, and then that's pretty much all there is to this top area. Moving on, below, we can see we get to this middle area right here, which has that sort of gray-white background, I'd have to say, with a bunch of what looks like, at a glance at least, white squiggly lines and dots going all the way around. In the center, we can see there is some Chinese text, once again, made up of that same red. There is a gold border going around that text, and there is a white background and border for all of the text as well. This just says happiness and happiness, and since it's two right side by side, it's double happiness, i.e. the name of this brand. Overall, very nice design, if I do say so myself, and pretty much the same logo that I saw on the previous pack of Double Happiness cigarettes that I've tried before. And yep, that's all there is to the Chinese text right here. Let's go ahead and move on to the background itself. And some of my hair is kind of getting my ear just a little bit. My ear is getting a little bit itchy there, I'm not gonna lie. But I'm getting distracted. I'm not gonna lie. Let's go ahead and move on to the background itself, which we can see as sort of a, I'd have to say, grayish, sort of muted, yeah, I'd have to say like a sort of muted white gray, which overall looks really nice, and there's a bunch of white squiggly lines going on and everything like that. But if we really pay attention to the squiggly lines, we can see they actually make up a pretty intricate and detailed design that does actually stretch over to the other sides of the packaging, which I love seeing quite a bit. We can see there's a lady holding a fan up here, there's a guy playing a flute down here, and then there's another like lady down here, and then there's a bunch of dots in the center, the ribbon kind of going out this way, a bunch of dots kind of connecting the design up and everything like that, and then there's the same design just flipped on the other side as well. Overall, a really nice design that I think looks really good and is especially interesting to me because from a distance, you're just going to think, oh, it's a bunch of squiggly lines, you're really not going to notice just at a glance what the actual design is, but once you really start paying attention, you notice it, and it's really cool when you do. I think that is really, really, really interesting, and I believe that's all there was to cover about the design in the center of the packaging. Moving on to the bottom, we can see we go to another red background. There's sort of a, I'd have to say, not laurel, not wreath, but a sort of ribbon made up of what looks like grain stalks or something like that. There's like a little bit of a gold gear in the center right there with a little bit of a bow kind of connecting everything together. And this is all made up of a yellow with the gear itself being a gold. It kind of does look a little bit orangey in some places, but that is simply due to the fact that the sort of grain stalk I don't know if y'all just saw that, but the wind picked up or something, and it just sent a bunch of these like seeds onto me. I'm getting so distracted today. Oh man, I was just like, what is going on? I was like, oh my goodness. But this can kind of look a little bit orangey when you're just looking at it quickly, but there's actually just holes in the yellow itself, which then go to the red, which then when kind of looked at when you're not looking at it super closely, can kind of look like an orange. Overall, this is a pretty nice design if you ask me. And moving on below that, we get to some gold text that just says the company that produced these cigarettes, which in specific is the Shanghai Tobacco Group Co. Ltd. And yep, that's all there is to the front of the packaging. Overall, pretty nice look in my personal opinion. And there's now a bug flying around my hand as well. But overall, a pretty nice look for the design of this packaging. Overall, not the most complex look, not the most in-depth look by any means, but there's certainly more to this packaging than meets the eye. And overall, I gotta admit, I do like this packaging. And I am a bigger fan of it than not. I think there's some aspects of it that other manufacturers could certainly take notes from. But, yep, that's pretty much all there is to the, front of this packaging. Let's go ahead and move on to the back, which we can see has a lot more English text. Once again, red background, and a sort of grayish white middle bit. The middle bit is exactly the same as we saw on the front of the packaging. There's no changes. The squiggly lines, they're all the exact same. No changes at all from what I can tell at least. But we can see at top at the top, there are no lanterns or anything like that. Instead, in yellow, it just says Double Happiness right there, just letting us know exactly what brand this is. Then below on the red portion down here, it just says in cursive cigarettes right there in a cursive text in English once again. And so yeah, it says what this brand is in Chinese on the front and in English on the back, which does make sense, I will acknowledge. But, yep, that's pretty much all there is to the back of the packaging. We can see it just says the Shanghai Tobacco Company, or Shanghai Tobacco Group, Ltd, once again down here in gold. And, yep, that's pretty much all there is to the design on the back. Really nothing too special going on, just a little bit more of a simple design with just English text instead of being a more intricate, I'd have to say, instead of being more intricate design with Chinese text, I think is really the right way of putting it. But yep, that's pretty much all there is to the back of the packaging. Moving on to this side of the packaging, we can see we get a number right here, which just says 20. That's all in yellow, but it has a border, or a border. I was about to say background, but no, border is the right way of describing it. It has a border of gold, and that is in a different font than any of the other fonts we see around the packaging, which is pretty interesting if I do say so myself. Moving on below that, on the sort of lighter area right here, we just get the barcode itself, and then under the barcode it just says these cigarettes are indeed, of course, FSC compliant, and that is one of the signs that these are absolutely meant for the American market, because there's no sort of FSC text compliancy requirement on Chinese market cigarette packs. Although they may have their own version of fire safe compliant cigarettes, I'm not exactly sure, but what I do know is that they don't require FSC text on the side of the pack. Moving on below that, we can see in black down here, it just says made in China right there. And then moving on to the other side, we can see it just says underage sale prohibited right there. We got the Surgeon General warning right there as well. It just says Surgeon General warning, quitting smoking now greatly reduces serious risks to your health. Don't care, we ball, not gonna stop. And then below that, on the red background down here in Chinese, it just says for export only. And yep, that's all there is to this side of the packaging. Moving on to the top, we can see red background, yellow text, just says happiness, happiness, double happiness. And moving on to the bottom, we can see red background, and it just says double happiness in English this time around. Once again, in that same yellow, but the logo itself is very much covered up by the California tax stamp on the bottom of this pack, as that's where this pack was indeed purchased. That's all there is to the packaging. Overall, I gotta admit, I'm a fan, I'm kind of a sucker of it, and there are certainly aspects to this packaging that I think other manufacturers could take note of. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this pack all opened up, if I possibly can, once I get the cellophane all off and quickly go over the quality of this packaging and whatnot. Overall, smells pretty good right off the bat. Getting a nice smell from these cigarettes. They smell a little bit different. Very, very, very curious to get one of these out, I'm not gonna lie, but let's go ahead and quickly cover the quality of the packaging, which is average quality, nothing particularly super special by any means. Texture-wise, very much that of a printed paperboard texture, and overall look-wise, does this pack look better with the cellophane off? I'd have to say it most certainly does. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this pack all opened up, and let's take a look at the inside of the pack. We can see nothing going on the inside of the cigarette lid right here. The insert itself is quite basic, nothing special going on, and the foil itself as well is just a plain silver foil. Nothing really going on either. It's very foily on one side, foily on the other side, but it's a very stiff foil. Let's go and see how easily it pulls out. Pulls out with a nice bit of satisfyingness, and pulls out cleanly as well. No complaints on my behalf about that, that is for sure. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get one of the American Double Happiness cigarettes all out of the pack. Let's take a look at what these actually look like, what they feel like, what the quality of them is like. I think first off, let's go ahead and smell these though. Oh man, it smells good. It smells good, I'm not gonna lie. Ooh, I'm getting a sweeter smell than not with some brown sugar, I'd have to say. Smells good. Smells good, I can say that for sure. And they also look good as well. Now, the smell is not super strong by any means, but it certainly is there. And the smell I'm getting is very much that of a, I'd have to say, brown sugar sweet, sort of ginger snap smell. I'm gonna have to smell this again in a minute after it kind of gets used to being out of the pack and whatnot. But yeah, initially at least I'm getting a sort of brown sugar ginger snap like smell, which is actually a surprisingly similar smell to the Double Happiness cigarettes I've tried in the past. And I really wasn't expecting that. I was really expecting it to be quite different, frankly put, but maybe these are actually going to be pretty similar. Very interesting, very interesting. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and now go over the look of the cigarette. We can see we get a, I'd have to say, dull cork style filter. We can see the sort of lighter bits are much more dull than not, and so from a distance this just looks like a brown filter, not quite a cork style filter, but it is nonetheless a dull cork style filter. The filter itself as well is quite long. This is a pretty long cigarette filter for the American market, but when compared to cigarettes in China, this is about the same length I've seen for others, I will acknowledge, although not all others I will acknowledge as well. Moving on, below or above the dull cork style filter, as I'm now holding the cigarette this way, we can see there is a white paper. There are horizontal lines going all the way across on it, and on the white paper itself we can see there is some nice multicolored sort of logos in ink. We can see at the very bottom down here we just get some numbers in red that just reads 331. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm sure it might mean something. And then below, or technically below or above, but then above this number right here, we can see the Double Happiness logo itself, which has a sort of coat of arms design to it, I'd have to say. In the center, in red, we get happiness, happiness, double happiness just right there. And then going around it in green, we can see that there's sort of a, I'd have to say, grain stalk design on either side, with those then connecting in a sort of like, I'd have to say like leaf design with a central area. I'm not exactly sure how to describe that, but it looks quite nice, and it does look, well, very Double Happiness-esque without a doubt. Overall, the design on this cigarette looks pretty nice, and it's not the most complex design I've ever seen for a smoke. I've certainly seen more complex, but when compared to cigarettes from the United States, which, if they do have a design on the filter, tend to have a design on the, or not a design on the filter, which, if they do have a design on the paper, tends to have the design only be in one color. I mean, like this has two. This is already a more intricate design than many designs available on the American market, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Overall, do I like how this cigarette looks? I certainly do like it, and it's a very nice, classy look with a very interesting look overall, and a slightly different look than other American cigarettes, which makes sense because this is a pack of Double Happiness cigarettes, which are made in China and is a Chinese brand. Overall, look-wise, I gotta admit, pretty solid if you ask me. Quality-wise, overall, solid. Not falling apart in my hand by any means. Any perforation on the filter, not seeing any, I will admit. And overall, the blend is very much that of a, I'd have to say, medium blend. I'd have to say it's very much a medium blended tobacco. There's some dark aspects, some light aspects, but it does, I would have to say, err on the side of a little bit darker than not. I'd have to say overall, this is very much just a medium, maybe slightly medium to dark blend, but overall more of a medium blend. The light aspects that are there aren't super light. The dark aspects that are there are darker than not, but not super dark. It's overall more of a medium blend than not, without a doubt. And that's everything I think I wanted to cover before I go ahead and get this lit up, besides smelling this cigarette once again. And overall, I mean, like, I gotta admit, this smells really nice. The smell is mild, though. It is mild, especially when it sits out of the pack for a minute. So I'm gonna put that down, and I am gonna get another one out just real quick. And yeah, I'd have to say the smell I'm getting, it's a little bit papery. It's a little bit brown sugary, without a doubt, and a little bit ginger snappy as well. Yeah, Very, very, very interesting. All right, very, very, very interesting. No complaints by my behalf. Yeah, I'd have to say the smell of the Double Happiness cigarettes from the United States overall is very much that of a slightly papery, brown sugar, sweet, ginger snap smell. That is a more mild smell than not. Yeah, I'd have to say brown sugar, ginger snap, and right after you get out of the pack, there's some papery smell. And that's very much what these cigarettes smell like, if you ask me. Overall, smells pretty good. A little bit more of a mild scent than the Chinese market Double Happiness cigarettes that I've tried in the past, but overall a very nice scent nonetheless. Let's go ahead and take a sip of water real quick. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get my lighter out of my pocket as well. And let's go ahead and get, well, my first ever American Double Happiness cigarette all lit up. And let's go ahead and get to smoking an American Double Happiness cigarette for the first time. I was getting my words a little jumbled up there, but I think I continued going. Okay, we're gonna go and get my first ever American Double Happiness cigarette lit up. Without further ado, let's get to smoking. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully one of those will do as a screenshot for the video, as a thumbnail for the video. We will find out. Overall, though, so far, there's definitely not the same as the Double Happiness cigarettes from the Chinese market I've tried in the past. There's definitely a sort of ginger snappy flavor in there without a doubt, which is very interesting. I'm gonna have to think about the flavor of this cigarette just a little bit, because it is, I will acknowledge, it is different. So I'm gonna have to think about it. But let's go ahead and cover everything else real quick. Body overall, even though it was whisked away very quickly by the wind, it is nonetheless not a bad size body by any means. I'd have to say overall a medium to large size body with a good amount of smoke density. Not the biggest body I've ever seen, not a super huge body, not the densest body I've ever seen, not a super dense body by any means, but definitely a more significant body than not, with a more thick smoke than not, I'd have to say. Airflow wise, the airflow is perfectly fine. It is not too constricted nor too loose, although these are actually I'm gonna have to think about this. I'd have to say maybe the airflow is a bit loose, but the draw itself is very much that of a medium draw, in my personal opinion, having a significance to it due to the size of the filter and due to the lack of perforation on the filter as well. I'm getting no sort of airiness in the draw, I will acknowledge. And yeah, it's very much that of a medium draw. Not a heavy draw, not a light draw, just a medium draw with no airiness. And that's simply due to the size and lack of perforation on the filter, as said, not due to the, well, I'd have to say, pretty light airflow. But yeah, the airflow definitely is honestly a bit loose. I think these cigarettes could use some packing, and I think for my next one, I might actually pack this pack and actually smoke it packed, in all honesty, because I do think these cigarettes do need some packing. The airflow is a bit loose, I will admit. I'd have to say roughness and smoothness wise, it's a, I'd have to say probably 3.2, 3.3 out of 4, a low 3 out of 4. Right about on target for a full-flavored cigarette, but a little bit smoother than something like, let's say, Marlboro Red, if you ask me. And I'd have to say, strength-wise, it's very much a low 3 to 4 as well. Certainly not the strongest full-flavored cigarette in the world. I've certainly had stronger cigarettes than this for sure, but a cigarette that is giving me a little bit of a buzz nonetheless. Probably about a 3.2, 3.3 out of 4, strength-wise, in all honesty. And the body, at the very end, definitely I'd have to say gets a little bit bigger. Not like insanely bigger, but definitely a little bit bigger. And I'd have to say that the body itself overall is, well, a pretty decently sized body. About standard for a full-flavored cigarette, but nothing insane by any means. Not super big, not super small. About standard for a full-flavored cigarette, and the density of the smoke is about the same for a full-flavored cigarette as well. But what's the taste like? Well, I think I'm going to have another one to really determine that. I'm going to go ahead and stub this out on the ground now that we've hit the cork-style paper. And there was a little bit more tobacco in there. The cork-style, or the cork-style filter, the filter just in general itself, there's a bug on my arm. The filter itself starts right about, I'd have to say, there, where my finger is tapping. And the filter itself, once you're done smoking, gets a little bit mushy. Not like super mushy by any means, but a little bit mushy nonetheless. And we can see that the tar is very evenly spread throughout the filter, so we can definitely say there is no perforation on the filter of this cigarette. Maybe it was a bit rougher than I was expecting, in all honesty, though, because I just coughed. And that was not a planned cough for comedy reasons either. Let's go ahead and pack this pack right here, because I do think, honestly, these do need some packing. And let's go ahead and get it back open up and just take a look at whether these are packed or not, and they certainly are, as we can see. Let's go ahead and get another cigarette all lit up, and let's go and get back to smoking and try to determine just what the flavor of the American Double Happiness cigarettes I have with me today is actually like. Just got a little bit of water in my lip. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get back to smoking. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying? And overall, it's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about this. All right, you really start to get the real taste when you do retrohales, I'll acknowledge. There's definitely a spicy ginger snap flavor in there. There's also definitely a little bit of nuttiness and a little bit of brown sugar molasses as well. And while the ginger snap sort of flavor does have a comparable spiciness to something like, let's say, a cedarwood flavor, I'd have to say the flavor itself is not particularly woody. Maybe there's a little bit in there, but not much. Okay. All right. So when you're just smoking the cigarette normally, the flavor does not appear to be anything insane, nothing particularly deep, and the flavor is not insanely deep by any means. However, it certainly does have depth to it, more depth than you might initially notice. Like when you're just inhaling normally, You very much get that of a, I'd just have to say, spicy ginger snap, slightly brown sugar flavor overall. But when you really start paying attention, the flavor becomes that of a I'd have to say spicy, slightly woodsy ginger snap flavor with undertones of a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of cream, a little bit of brown sugar, and I'd have to say just the slightest bit of paper as well. Not much paper. You do got to pay attention to really notice the paper flavor, but it is there just a little bit. But that is what these cigarettes taste like, if you ask me. Yeah, I'd have to say that's an accurate description. Before I finish off this cigarette, I want to see if there's anything I'm missing, though. I'd have to say the brown sugar definitely does have some molasses going on as well. It's definitely worth mentioning. I'd have to say this cigarette definitely smokes better when packed as well, without a doubt. And... ooh. Oh, wait. I'm starting to notice even something completely new now. Hold up. I'm starting to notice a sort of lemongrass, rose, sort of citrusy, floral flavor as well. That's different. I didn't notice that until literally just now. I might go for another one, because I feel like there's more to the flavor than even what I noticed with that one. Wow. And I think there's like some sort of gnat in my nose. Something like that. Oh, man. The bugs are out. And they are out to get me today, I'm not going to lie. My goodness, my goodness. But, I'm going to go and put this inside of my backpack. Can't be later. Man, my nose is still itchy. My nose is still itchy. I don't know what's going on. I'll acknowledge. I've got no idea what's going on. Oh, man. But I think I'm going to have another one. Because I feel like there really is more that I didn't notice. And I want to make sure I'm giving you all an accurate description of the flavor of these cigarettes. So I'm going to have another one. And it's not like these cigarettes burn for a particularly long amount of time, so ain't no biggie, you know what I'm saying? Ain't no biggie. Without further ado, let's go and get back to smoking. Yes, sir, you know what I'm saying? I definitely have to say at the very beginning, these cigarettes are a little bit rougher than they are in, like, let's say the middle of the cigarette. They're like a low to mid 3 out of 4 roughness and smoothness wise. Overall, though, with the strength being about the same, like I'm not feeling super buzzed even though I've smoked 2 of them so far. And I'm not concerned about this third one making me too buzzed by any means, because I don't think it's going to do that. Yeah. Now that I'm really starting to get a good idea of what the flavor is like, I really am noticing a sort of lemony, floral, sort of almost like sweet, oh yeah, sort of like sweet, citrusy, lemon, almost sort of floral, rose-like flavor as well. And this is why I smoke more than one cigarette for reviews, because, well, as you continue smoking, you notice more stuff. And so I smoke until I feel like I've noticed everything. Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Huh. Okay. I'm gonna give myself a moment. Really try to just think about what the flavor is like before I say anything once and for all. The body, we got a really good idea of what the body was like right there. Dense smoke. Definitely, I think even more dense than I was thinking. And also, pretty decently sized body. Definitely about average size body for a full flavored cigarette, but a little bit more dense than your average, I'd have to say, American full flavored cigarette body. A little bit more dense, but about the same body size overall. I'd have to say, as said, roughness, smoothness wise, a low to mid 3 to 4. Strength wise, a low to mid 3 to 4. Airflow, once you pack these, is definitely a lot better. Not constricted per se, just a much better airflow overall. When you don't pack these, the airflow is a little bit loose. And whether you pack these or don't, the draw is very much that of a medium draw, I will acknowledge. And the flavor of these, as I continue smoking, as I continue noticing more things, the flavor of this cigarette, my perception of the flavor has changed. I initially thought it was a spicy ginger snap, brown sugar, nutty, creamy, brown sugar molasses flavor. And that's very much still in there. But there's other stuff going on as well. And honestly, the other stuff, now that I've gotten used to smoking these, is even more prevalent than it was when I first started noticing it. It was an undertone when I first noticed it, and now it's almost getting to the point where it's an overtone. I'd have to say, overall, the Double Happiness cigarettes from the United States are very much that of a semi-sweet, semi-spicy cigarette that are not the highest quality cigarettes in the world, but they are still good quality, without a doubt. Better quality than Marlboros, and I'd have to say of about the same quality as something like, let's say, a Camel, in my opinion. I'm getting no sort of chemical taste, no sort of additive taste, maybe just a little bit of paper taste, but really not much. And I'd have to say the flavor itself is very much that of a slightly citrusy, sweet lemon flavor with an undertone of a little bit of a floral, almost sort of rose flavor. And then there's an undertone of brown sugar, molasses, a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of cream. And then under that, there is, I'd have to say, a sort of slightly spicy ginger snap flavor that to some may taste more like a sort of cedarwood flavor. So yeah, overall, very much that of a yeah, I'd have to say very much that of a, I'm trying to think of the, it's sort of a nectar-like sweet, lemon, citrusy flavor with an undertone of some floral flavor, kind of coming from that nectar sweetness, I want to say, with a little bit of a sort of like rose flavor in there. And then there's undertones under that of brown sugar, molasses, a little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of creaminess. And then there's a little bit of that spicy sort of ginger snap flavor that some may call a sort of cedarwood spicy flavor. And that's very much what the flavor of these cigarettes is like. It took me 3 cigarettes to really be able to determine what the flavor of this is like. These are actually much more layered than I initially thought they were. I said while I was smoking the first cigarette I had during today's video that these are not insanely layered, that they're not the deepest cigarettes in the world, that there is depth to them, but there's not a lot of depth. They're not insanely layered. No, these are much more layered than I initially thought. Absolutely, I spoke too soon, without a doubt. Yeah. Certainly no complaints on my behalf. Overall, I gotta admit, I am impressed by the American Double Happiness cigarettes that I have smoked and tried for the first time today. Overall, my first ever experience with an American pack of Double Happiness cigarettes has been a good one. But what are my final thoughts on these? What do I think of them as a whole? Well, I'd have to say they're really good. They are really good. They're not like the highest quality cigarettes in the world. They're, I'd have to say, about on the same level, quality-wise, as Camels. They just have a more in-depth flavor, in my personal opinion. However, due to the depth of flavor, which is something I really like, I like these quite a bit. I like these more than standard Camels that I've tried before. I think they're really good. The Double Happiness cigarettes that were produced for and sold on the American market, very solid stuff without a doubt. Very, very, very solid cigarettes that have a really nice flavor and an in-depth flavor at that. I like them. I like them quite a bit. And I'd have to say, if the American Double Happiness cigarettes were sold in my local area, I would absolutely buy a pack with my own money. I would absolutely buy a pack of these cigarettes with my own money. And not just once. I would probably make these special occasion cigarettes and just smoke them every once in a while, kind of thing. That's probably what I'd do with these, in all honesty. I also think that these are really good chain smoking cigarettes because they're not super heavy either. They're, I'd have to say, a little bit lighter than your standard American full-flavored cigarette. They are, in my opinion, very much a... They're a full-flavored cigarette, but they err more on the side of a lighter than not full-flavored cigarette. Almost to medium strength levels, but not quite there. Almost, though. Almost. Overall, the American Double Happiness cigarettes, I think they're good chain-smoking cigarettes. I think they would be great with a hard cider, frankly put. I think, personally, that they are also just really nice-tasting cigarettes as a whole. And while they're not the highest quality things in the world, the depth of flavor really does make up for it. Overall, absolutely, I'm going to enjoy smoking the rest of this pack. Absolutely, I would buy a pack of these cigarettes with my own money. And if I'm ever in California or another state which sells these cigarettes, I'm going to be on the lookout for them. That is for sure. I like the American Double Happiness cigarettes, and I think they are very much deserving of a very, very, very solid high 3 out of 4. Like a 3.8 out of 4 is what I'm thinking, to be precise. Now, are they better than the Chinese market Double Happiness cigarettes I tried previously, though? No, they're not. They're not. They're not better. But they are almost as good. They are almost as good, but not better. But are they different? Absolutely. They are different. They're definitely different. There's certainly flavor tones too, both, that are comparable, that are very similar. The sort of ginger snap sort of spiciness was definitely very similar to the ginger snap sort of spiciness I got from the other pack of Double Happiness cigarettes, which were previously, which if I remember correctly, were called the Double Happiness 1906 cigarettes. Tried those previously. Those had a different flavor profile, but there were definitely some flavor intricacies that were comparable, similar between the two of them. And the one that, actually not one, because there's multiple, the couple flavors that are reminiscent between the both of them are, one, that sort of ginger snap flavor, and then two, the brown sugar molasses-like flavor. Those flavors, and the nuttiness, I'd have to say a little bit as well. Those three flavors are very much comparable between the two cigarettes we've tried before. But I can definitely say that this variety of Double Happiness is different than the variety I've tried previously. The variety I tried from the Chinese market, to be precise. Yeah, very, very, very interesting stuff. Very, very, very interesting. I'd have to say the Chinese market pack of Double Happiness cigarettes I tried, a little bit higher quality than this pack. And that's really the only reason why I prefer that pack over this pack. But still, both are very solid, and if you enjoy these, I'm thinking you're also going to enjoy a Chinese market pack of Double Happiness cigarettes as well. Although, no guarantees, of course. I haven't tried a huge amount of Chinese market Double Happiness cigarettes after all. But yeah, overall, I'm a fan of these. They definitely deserve a 3.8 out of 4, and, well, I can't wait to smoke the rest of this pack. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video today. If you guys have enjoyed watching, of course, please make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Also, make sure to let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of American Double Happiness cigarettes, if you guys have tried them previously, or if you guys haven't tried American Double Happiness cigarettes, but have tried the Chinese market Double Happiness cigarettes, or another market's version. Make sure to let me know what you guys think of those in the comments down below, and whether what you guys tried is comparable to what I smoked today. And let me know just how accurate you guys think what I said actually was, if you guys have tried this exact pack. As said, hope you guys have enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have enjoyed watching this video, like, subscribe, check out my Instagram, my book, my merch, my website, and everything like that, all in the description down below. To the next one, y'all, stay safe and peace, and have a great one. Yes, sir, and I'm saying.